The galaxy was vast, filled with countless stars, and many worlds held secrets waiting to be discovered. Among the explorers who traveled between those stars was a young human named Aaron. He was not a commander, not a scientist of great fame, and not a soldier. He was simply one of the crew members aboard a ship called Horizon Dawn. The ship was small compared to the great fleets of powerful empires, but it carried hope, curiosity, and the spirit of humanity. The crew of Horizon Dawn had been traveling for months, mapping unknown regions and sending back records of strange skies. One day their scanners picked up a planet surrounded by a field of golden clouds. Its light shimmered in a way that no one had seen before. The captain ordered the ship closer, and soon they discovered the world was home to a race known as the Cerealans. Stories of the Cerealans had been whispered across space. They were said to be a proud people, wise, advanced, and ruled by a royal family that traced its line back thousands of years. When Horizon Dawn received permission to land, every crew member felt a mix of pride and fear. To be allowed into the royal city of the Cerealans was no small honor. The shining towers of their capital reached into the sky like silver spears, bridges of crystal stretched between them, and gardens floated on platforms above calm lakes. The city seemed less like stone and more like a dream shaped by light. Aaron, who had grown up on a mining colony, could hardly believe his eyes. He had seen machines and steel his whole life, but never such beauty. As the crew left the ship, they were guided through wide streets by Cerealan guards in silver armor. People gathered to watch, their eyes calm but curious. Humans were not strangers in the galaxy, but they were still young compared to many other civilizations. Some Cerealans whispered, some smiled politely, and others looked with doubt. To them, humanity was still new, still testing its place among the stars. At last, the crew reached the royal hall. It was vast, with high ceilings that glittered like a sky full of stars. Long banners flowed from the walls, showing the history of the Cerealan people. On the throne at the end of the hall sat the king and queen, dressed in robes of light. But among the figures standing close to them was one who drew every gaze. It was the princess. Her name was Leora. She stood tall, her hair shining like strands of silver under the hall's glow. Her eyes were deep, as if they carried the knowledge of galaxies. She was known not only as the heir of her people, but also as a spirit of calm wisdom. Many travelers had come to meet her. Many had tried to win her favor with gifts of wealth and power. Few had ever truly touched her heart. When the captain of Horizon Dawn stepped forward, he carried a gift of fine crystal harvested from a dead star. It shone with a brilliance that filled the room with colors. Other crew members offered gifts too. One brought a box of rare seeds from distant forests. Another offered a tool of human design that could read the patterns of energy in space. Every gift was accepted with grace. Every word was polite, but Princess Leora's face remained calm and unchanged. Aaron stood at the end of the line, nervous. He had nothing rare, nothing that would compare to the treasures offered before him. He had not even thought of bringing a gift until the last moment. Now, as he watched the princess's calm face, he felt the weight of his empty hands. He wondered if he should step aside, stay silent, and let the others shine. But when his eyes met hers, something stopped him. Her gaze was not cold. It was curious. She looked at him not as a subject to judge, but as a being to understand. In that moment, Aaron felt that even the smallest act could matter. He thought of home, of Earth, of the colony where he grew up. He remembered the old lessons of his grandmother, who had always said that gifts were not measured by their shine, but by the heart that gave them. He reached into his small travel bag. Inside was a carved wooden pendant. It was not perfect. He had made it years ago during training, shaping it slowly with his own hands. The wood was smooth but carried small marks of effort. He had kept it as a reminder of home, of the days when life was simple. With careful steps, Aaron walked forward. The hall grew quiet. The nobles of the Cerealans leaned closer, their eyes filled with doubt. What could a plain piece of wood mean in a hall of crystal and gold? But Aaron's hands did not shake. He bowed slightly and placed the pendant in the princess's open palm. For a moment, the hall was silent. The king and queen exchanged looks, uncertain. Ministers whispered, thinking the act foolish. But Princess Leora did not move. She held the pendant as if it were a delicate star. She turned it slowly, tracing the lines of the grain, and studied every mark carved into it. Her calm face changed, not with laughter, not with surprise, but with a light of quiet wonder. Aaron stepped back, uncertain of what he had done. He expected the pendant to be set aside quickly, forgotten among brighter treasures. But he had seen something in her eyes, and that gave him a small spark of hope. That was the first meeting. A human explorer and a Cerealan princess in a hall of crystal and starlight. A simple gift had been given, and though no one yet understood its meaning, it had begun something unexpected. What seemed small at first would soon grow into a story that reached far beyond a single hall, far beyond one planet, and far beyond anything Aaron had imagined. The great hall of the Cerealan palace was still silent after Aaron placed the small wooden pendant in Princess Leora's hand. The light of the crystal walls reflected around them, but all attention stayed on the simple object resting in her palm. For most of the nobles present, it was nothing but a plain charm, carved from an ordinary material. Yet to Aaron, it carried years of memory, and to the princess it seemed to carry something even more. The king leaned slightly toward his daughter, as if to see her reaction more clearly. Ministers whispered in low voices, some disapproving, some amused. They had seen rulers of other worlds bring gifts of machines that could bend energy, treasures that shone brighter than suns, and weapons that could destroy whole fleets. Now a human had stepped forward with something so small and ordinary. Many of them thought it unworthy, yet none could ignore how the princess continued to hold it with care. Aaron stood with his head lowered, feeling the weight of many eyes on him. He thought perhaps he had made a mistake. What was a small wooden pendant compared to jewels and rare crystals? He had not meant to insult their royal family, but he had nothing else to give. Still, he reminded himself of what his grandmother had told him, that a gift was not about value but about meaning. He kept his eyes steady and waited for whatever would come. Princess Leora finally raised her gaze. Her voice was soft, calm, and yet it filled the hall with its strength. "This is different," she said. "Tell me, traveler, where does it come from?" The hall stirred. It was rare for the princess to ask about a gift. Usually she accepted with grace and silence, but now she wanted to know the story. Aaron lifted his head and spoke clearly, though his heart raced. "It comes from my home, princess. It is not rare in material, but it is carved by my own hands. I made it during my training years when life was hard but full of hope. I carried it with me as a reminder of my people and my world. It is simple, but it holds my memory." The princess studied him as much as she studied the pendant. Her eyes were deep, as though she was searching through his words for hidden layers. What she saw made her lips curve into a faint smile. She closed her fingers gently around the pendant and held it close to her chest. Whispers filled the room. The nobles did not understand. Why would their heir treat such a simple object with such care? Yet none of them dared to question her directly. The king and queen exchanged another glance, this time not of doubt but of curiosity. Leora turned again to Aaron. "You have given me not just a gift," she said, "but a piece of yourself. That is what makes it precious." Aaron bowed, his heart lightened by her words. He had expected his small act to be forgotten, but instead it had been honored in front of all. The moment felt larger than him, as if something had begun that even he could not see. The ceremony continued, but the hall's mood had shifted. The shining treasures of the other visitors seemed to lose some of their glow compared to the quiet weight of Aaron's gift. Even when the event ended and the crew of Horizon Dawn was escorted out, many eyes followed the princess, who still carried the pendant in her hand. Later, in the quiet of her private chambers, Princess Leora sat by a wide window overlooking the golden clouds of her world. The pendant rested on her lap. She turned it slowly, feeling the rough marks left by human hands. She had been given many gifts before, but they were always polished, perfect, and made by machines. This was different. It spoke of time, patience, and effort. It carried warmth that no jewel could match. For Leora, the gift was not about its material. It was about sincerity. She had lived her life surrounded by power and wealth, yet such things rarely touched her spirit. But this simple pendant told her of a world far away, of a people who valued effort and memory. It told her of a human who was not afraid to stand in a hall of nobles with nothing but honesty. She placed the pendant around her neck and felt a strange strength in its weight. Meanwhile, Aaron returned to his quarters aboard Horizon Dawn. His fellow crew members asked why the princess had shown such interest in his gift. Aaron only shook his head, saying he did not fully understand. He had simply given what he had. Some teased him gently, others praised his courage, but Aaron stayed quiet. Deep inside, he felt something important had happened. though he could not yet explain it. The next day, an unexpected message arrived for the human crew. The royal court had requested a private audience with Aaron. Not the captain, not the officers, but Aaron himself. The news spread quickly across the ship. Many wondered what it meant. Was it an honor or was it danger? Aaron himself felt nervous, yet he could not refuse. When he entered the royal gardens, he found Princess Leora waiting under the shade of tall crystal trees. Birds with wings of silver flew above them, and streams of light moved across the grass. She wore the wooden pendant around her neck, and when she saw Irene, she touched it gently as if to show him that she valued it. "Walk with me," she said. They moved along the paths of the garden. She asked him questions about Earth, about its skies, oceans, and mountains. She asked about human families, about music, and about the meaning of small traditions. Aaron answered as best he could, speaking not as a trained diplomat, but as a man sharing his life. She listened with deep interest as though each word was a treasure. The princess told him of her world as well, of the long history of the Cerelans, their struggles and triumphs, their love of harmony. Yet she admitted something too. "We have forgotten what simplicity feels like," she said. "Our gifts have become symbols, not truths. Your gift reminded me that true worth lies not in perfection, but in sincerity." Aaron felt humbled. He had never thought his pendant could mean so much, yet now it seemed to carry a bridge between two worlds. That evening, when he returned to his ship, he knew that his gift had changed more than just a ceremony. It had opened a door, a connection that was real and rare. The human spirit, expressed in something small and honest, had touched the heart of a princess from another world. And though the future was still unknown, Aaron felt that this was only the beginning of a story far greater than he had ever imagined. The morning light poured through the tall windows of the Cerelan palace. Golden clouds drifted slowly across the sky, painting the royal city in soft colors. Inside the throne hall, preparations were underway for another gathering of nobles and officials. The air was filled with quiet voices, the rustle of robes and the gleam of crystal ornaments. Everyone knew the princess would appear, and everyone wondered if she would still be wearing the strange human gift. When Princess Leora entered, the hall fell silent. She wore a gown of pale silver that shimmered like flowing water, but what caught every eye was the wooden pendant resting against her chest. It was plain compared to the jewels around her, yet she carried it with pride as though it were a crown of its own. Ministers exchanged uneasy glances. Some whispered that it was unworthy of her, others that it was a sign of insult, but no one could ignore the calm confidence on her face. The king and queen observed their daughter closely. Though they did not speak against her choice, they knew the court expected answers. A princess heir to the throne valuing a simple human gift over treasures of power, such an act could stir debate across the empire. Still, they remained quiet, allowing her to speak for herself. As the hall gathered, one minister finally stepped forward. His voice was respectful but sharp. "Princess, you wear this human token as though it were a relic of power. Forgive my question, but does it truly hold more value to you than the gifts of entire kingdoms?" Leora looked at him, her eyes steady. She touched the pendant gently, her fingers brushing across the carved lines. "Yes," she said, her voice calm yet firm. "This gift is not about wealth or power. It is about truth. It carries the time and effort of human hands. It carries memory. It carries sincerity. That makes it more precious than treasures that shine without meaning." The hall erupted in whispers. Some nodded in quiet agreement, others frowned in doubt. Aaron, standing among his crew near the edge of the hall, felt his chest tighten. He had expected the pendant to be forgotten, perhaps even discarded, but now the princess defended it before her entire people. Another noble spoke, his tone skeptical. "Princess, our world is a beacon of strength and wisdom. Should not the heir of Cerella honor gifts that reflect that greatness, rather than a piece of carved wood from a simple traveler?" Leora's voice grew stronger. "Greatness is not measured by jewels or by machines. Greatness is measured by spirit. This pendant shows me that humanity carries a spirit of honesty and effort. That spirit is what will guide us forward, not empty shine." Her words echoed through the hall. For the first time in many years, the nobles had no answer. They were used to speaking of power and perfection, but they had forgotten the value of something genuine. The silence stretched, and in that silence the princess's voice carried greater weight than any jewel could. Aaron felt a warmth inside him, mixed with disbelief. He had never thought his small gift could cause such a moment. He had only given it because he had nothing else, because he believed in the value of sincerity. Yet now that choice was shaking an entire royal court. After the gathering ended, the king called for a private discussion with his daughter. Inside a quiet chamber, away from the crowd, he looked at her with steady eyes. "Leora, you have defended this gift before the whole court. Tell me honestly, why does it matter so much to you?" The princess held the pendant between her fingers and spoke softly. "Father, I have received jewels, machines, and treasures all my life. They are beautiful, but they do not speak to the heart. This gift is imperfect, yet it carries more truth than all the treasures combined. It reminds me that meaning comes from effort, not wealth. If I am to rule one day, I must never forget that truth." The king listened, his face unreadable. Then slowly he nodded. "Perhaps you are right. Perhaps we have been blinded by perfection for too long. Still, your choice will not be easy for the nobles to accept." "I do not seek their acceptance," Leora said firmly. "I seek what is true." That evening in the palace gardens, Leora asked Arin to join her again. The paths were quiet, lit by glowing stones that guided their steps. She wore the pendant still, and when she noticed Arin's uncertain expression, she smiled. "You did not expect this, did you?" she asked gently. Arin shook his head. "No, princess. I thought my gift would be forgotten. I never imagined you would value it this much." Leora touched the pendant lightly. "This gift is more than wood. It is a symbol. It shows that your people carry honesty, and that is rare. You did not try to impress me with power. You simply gave what was yours. That makes it priceless." Arin walked beside her, humbled. "I am honored that you see it this way, but I fear others may see it as foolishness." "Let them," she replied, her eyes calm. "A princess must see with her own heart, not with the eyes of others. And my heart tells me this is worth more than jewels." They walked on in silence for a time, listening to the sound of water flowing through the streams. Arin looked at the gardens around them, filled with glowing plants and crystal statues, and wondered how such a world could find meaning in something so simple. Yet he realized that was exactly why it mattered. Among so much beauty and perfection, something imperfect but true could shine brighter. As the night deepened, the princess turned to him once more. "Your gift has changed something in me, Arin. It has reminded me of what is important. And I think it may change more than just me. It may change how our people see yours." Arin felt a quiet awe. He had not set out to change anything. He had only given a piece of himself. Yet now that small act had touched the heart of a princess and perhaps opened a door between two civilizations. The stars above shone brightly as they returned to the palace. In the quiet of his quarters, Arin thought about the day. He remembered the whispers of doubt, the firm words of the princess, and the way she had defended his gift before all. For the first time, he understood what his grandmother had meant long ago, that the smallest act, when given with truth, could hold more power than the greatest treasure. And so, what began as a simple gesture was no longer just a gift. It had become a symbol of connection, a spark of change, and a reminder that even in the vastness of the galaxy, the human spirit could shine in ways no one expected. The days that followed were filled with quiet tension across the palace. The story of the princess and the human's gift spread quickly, not only through the city but across the Cerealan world. Some nobles saw it as a dangerous sign, believing the heir of their empire should never lower herself to treasure something so simple. Others, however, felt stirred by her words. They had long forgotten the meaning of sincerity, and the story reminded them of something they had lost. Arin, meanwhile, tried to remain unnoticed among his crew. He had no wish to cause political storms. Yet every step he took in the palace grounds carried new weight. Guards and servants who once passed him without thought now looked at him with curiosity. Some offered polite nods. Others studied him as though trying to understand what made him different. He often wondered if he should apologize to the princess for the trouble, but whenever they met, her calm eyes told him that no apology was needed. One evening, he was summoned again to the royal gardens. He followed a path lined with crystal trees that glowed softly in the fading light. Streams of golden water flowed around them, filling the air with a gentle sound. At the center of the garden, under a wide arch carved from silver stone, Princess Leora was waiting. She wore no crown, no jewels, only a simple robe of white. The wooden pendant still rested on her chest, and when she saw Arin, her lips curved into a small smile. "Thank you for coming," she said softly. Arin bowed. "It is my honor, Princess." She motioned for him to walk beside her. "Tell me more about your people," she asked as they strolled down the path. "I want to understand what shaped this gift. What shaped you?" Aaron spoke of Earth, of skies filled with blue, of seas that stretched endlessly, of mountains older than memory. He told her of songs sung by families, of stories shared by firelight, of children carving small things not because they were needed, but because they carried love. His words were simple, but each painted an image in her mind. She listened closely, her eyes never leaving his, as if every detail was more valuable than any jewel she had ever received. In return, she shared her own world. She spoke of the long history of the Cerealans, of their rise from simple villages to a civilization of light. She told him of their devotion to harmony, of their search for balance, and of the endless struggle to maintain peace among proud families. Yet with quiet honesty, she admitted something few had ever heard. "We have lost touch with the small things," she said. "We built towers that touched the sky, but we forgot how to see the beauty of a single stone. Your gift reminded me of that." They stopped by a lake that reflected the stars above. Silver fish swam beneath the surface, leaving trails of light as they moved. Leora knelt and touched the water. "When I was a child," she said, "I often came here. I would sit by the water and listen to the stories of the elders. But as I grew, duty called me away. The council taught me that symbols of power mattered most. I obeyed, but my heart longed for something different. And now this pendant has returned that feeling to me." Aaron knelt beside her, his reflection rippling in the water. "I am glad my gift means so much," he said, his voice steady though his heart raced. "But I did not expect it to change anything. I only wanted to give something honest." "That is why it changed everything," she replied. As the night deepened, they walked further into the gardens. Fireflies of light floated between the trees, glowing softly like small stars. Leora asked him about human dreams, about what humans sought among the stars. Aaron answered with care. "We seek understanding. We seek connection. We want to learn not only how to survive, but how to share what we are with others." Her eyes shone as she listened. "Then perhaps your people and mine are not so different. We too search for meaning beyond power. Perhaps it is time we remember what truly matters." Their connection grew stronger with every word, every shared thought. It was not built on wealth nor on power, but on trust. In her presence, Aaron felt no need to pretend. He could speak openly, and she would listen. In his presence, Leora felt free from the weight of courtly expectation. She could speak from the heart, and he would understand. Yet beyond the garden walls, whispers of unrest grew louder. Some nobles met in secret chambers, their voices sharp with anger. They feared that the princess's bond with a human might weaken their traditions, might invite unwanted influence from a younger race. Plans were whispered, doubts spread, but still the princess walked proudly with the pendant across her chest. One afternoon, as the council gathered, a noble rose to speak against her. "Princess Leora places too much trust in this human," he declared. "She risks our honor and dignity by valuing a token that is beneath us. If she continues, she may bring shame to our throne." Leora did not remain silent. She stood tall before them, her voice calm but filled with strength. "It is not shame to honor sincerity. It is wisdom. If we cannot see the worth of what is simple and true, then our greatness is only a shadow." Her words struck deeply, leaving many silent. Even those who opposed her found themselves questioning their own hearts. The king, though cautious, allowed her to continue her path. He saw in her a strength that reminded him of the founders of their people, who had built their world not with treasures but with unity. That evening, she met Aaron once more in the gardens. "Today I defended our bond again," she told him. "It will not be the last time, but I do not fear, because truth is stronger than doubt." Aaron looked at her with quiet admiration. "I never thought my small gift would lead to this, but if it has given you strength, then it was worth more than I ever imagined." They stood beneath the stars, the wooden pendant resting between them as a symbol of their growing bond. It was no longer just a simple carving. It had become a bridge between a human and a princess, between two worlds, between two ways of seeing what mattered in life. The connection between them was fragile yet powerful, like a spark ready to light a fire across the galaxy. And though both of them knew challenges lay ahead, neither wished to turn away. For they had found something rare, something honest, something worth holding on to. The bond between Aaron and Princess Leora had become the heart of many conversations across the empire. Some spoke of it with wonder, while others whispered with fear. Yet the story would not remain in whispers for long. The news had already traveled to distant worlds where allies and rivals of the Cerealan Empire watched with great interest. For Aaron, life in the palace felt heavier each day. He knew his presence was unusual, even dangerous, yet he could not bring himself to leave. Each evening spent in the gardens with Leora gave him a peace he had never known. Her laughter carried warmth, and her words revealed strength beyond the title of princess. But behind her calm smile he sensed the storm building. The storm revealed itself sooner than expected. The council called for a gathering of the highest order. Nobles, scholars, generals, and priests filled the great hall, their robes shimmering under crystal lights. At the center stood the king, his expression solemn. By his side stood Leora, the pendant visible on her chest. A voice thundered from the chamber. "This cannot continue," a noble declared. "The princess carries a foreign trinket as if it were a crown jewel. She defies tradition and she risks our unity. Will we let one human shape the heart of our heir?" The hall erupted with voices, some agreeing, others resisting. Arguments clashed like blades. Some reminded the council of old times when Cerealans themselves were simple, and small gifts bound villages together. Others demanded purity, warning that too much trust in outsiders could lead to ruin. Finally, the king raised his hand, and silence fell. His eyes rested on Aaron. "You have been at the center of this matter. Step forward." Aaron's footsteps echoed across the hall as he walked into the circle. He felt the weight of countless eyes on him, their gazes sharp and questioning. Yet when he glanced at Leora, he found courage in her steady gaze. The king spoke. "Tell us, human, why should a gift of wood carved by your hands mean more to my daughter than the treasures of our empire? Speak not as a subject, but as yourself." Aaron bowed his head respectfully, then raised his voice. "I carved the pendant not for power, not for wealth, but because it was something I could give from my heart. On my world, we have learned that true value lies not in how rare a thing is, but in the meaning carried within it. This pendant holds a piece of who I am, and I offered it freely. That is why it matters, not because of what it is, but because of what it means." For a long moment, silence filled the hall. Then Leora spoke, her voice clear and unwavering. "This is the truth I have seen. It is not the gift itself, but the honesty behind it that renews my spirit. If we deny the worth of sincerity, then we deny the very soul of our people." Her words stirred the hall. Some bowed their heads, others clenched their fists in silence, but none could dismiss the weight of her conviction. The king studied his daughter for a long while before finally nodding. "Then let it be known. The princess has chosen her path. She will honor this bond, and we will not silence her heart. If a simple gift can remind us of who we once were, then perhaps it is not weakness but strength." The council ended with uncertainty still in the air, but a shift had taken place. The idea that sincerity mattered more than power had taken root, and it would not be easily removed. That evening, beneath the same glowing trees where their friendship had deepened, Leora and Aaron met again. The tension of the council still weighed on him, but she carried herself with calm pride. "You spoke with honesty," she said, "and it reached them. Even those who disagreed heard your heart. That is more powerful than you know." Aaron gave a small smile. "I feared I would only bring you trouble, but if my words have given you strength, then I am grateful." Leora reached for the pendant and held it gently. "This gift will remain with me always, not because it is beautiful, but because it is true. And through it you have shown me a different path, one I wish to walk." Their eyes met, and though no vow was spoken, something passed between them, trust unshaken by fear, and hope for a future that bridged two worlds. In the days that followed, stories of the human's gift spread even further. On distant planets, people began to speak of Earth not as a young world of little importance, but as a place where honesty still lived. And in the heart of the Cerealan Empire, one simple wooden pendant reminded an entire people that greatness did not come only from power or tradition. It came from truth. And that truth, carried by a human's small gift, had forever changed the destiny of a princess and perhaps the stars themselves.